Hello everybody, welcome back. I recorded a brief and somewhat scatterbrained summary of this deck before the round started, and then I proceeded to forget to record my games live with live commentary, so I have to use the somewhat suboptimal Magic the Gathering replay tool to talk about them now. I think the first game was absolutely the most interesting game, so I'll spend the most time talking about that. The other two, I felt like I played poorly and was punished for it, and then won a third game that was, a bit of a non-event. This game was certainly the most interesting. I'm on the player on the dice roll. My opponent's playing blue-red control, blue-red moon, with Archmage's Charm, Thing in the Ice in the board, that style of deck. They have an Ionized main deck, so that style of blue-red, counter-burn, similar to this deck but larger up the curve. They're playing 3, 4, 5 drops instead of 1, 2 drops. Anyway, this opening hand is perfectly reasonable. I'm acutely aware that I really need to stick some sort of 1-drop threat, because if the board's empty going into turn 4 and my opponent can pass the turn with a lot of mana up, that's a sticky situation where they can counter my one thing a turn profitably. Anyway, this hand's there's a little bit of an awkward tension between the mana in this hand and the cards you want to cast. You want to play Delver of Secrets on turn 1 for obvious reasons, especially because this deck is very poor at flipping Delver of Secrets. But then next turn I'm not going to be able to get an extra point of damage by fireballing the face and playing Suspir, if this was a dual land. Looking at my opponent's deck list, which I'll put in the description, Fireball has very few main deck targets. It's going to the face almost 100% of the time in this matchup. Opponent shifts a turn with an island. I obviously did not flip my Delver, but Grim Lavamancer just makes this mana tension worse. It would be much better if I was to get both 1-drops into play this turn. But I like to play Suspir for obvious reasons. Lavamancer's probably not doing anything for a couple of turns if I do play it. And then we just send, and we're really just going to see what happens. The most likely outcome in our opponent's next turn is they play a land and pass the turn back, or they play a red source, kill a creature and pass the turn back. But they then pay mana for Gataxian Probe. Paying life is sort of obviously a very high risk thing to do. It's not the paying of mana that makes me curious, it's the fact that they do it on turn 2, so either they just drew it or they wanted to leave up a Spell Pierce / Spell Snare effect. And then I spent a lot of time thinking about what they could have been leaving up on turn 1. And I maybe spent too much time thinking about it, but it does create this interesting tension on the next turn. This is probably the most interesting set of decisions in the matchup against a slightly larger deck that has counter magic. So Delver doesn't flip, we do draw a land. And that creates the possibility of a few different lines of play. There's Fireball at the face, pump Swiftspear, play Lavamancer, and prepare to try and grind that way with Lavamancer. Delta goes to the bin, Fireball goes to the bin, you don't want to eat it, they might kill a creature. Then there's the polluted Delta, play Jack Faden, pump Swiftspear, draw cards, start fueling Lavamancer, start fueling, discard Fireball to Jack Faden, start fueling your card advantage engine, card selection engine. And then the third angle is you just attack. You don't know what this is. I thought it might be Spell Snare, because that was the card that made the most sense if we left up, but I really didn't know. I didn't want to run Jack Faden directly into something like a Spell Pierce. I think I probably should have played Jack Faden here pre-combat, but I decided to be quite cautious and just attack. So you can see here, I ship for 2. My opponent knows what's in my hand, which is the other factor. They've seen 4 of these cards with Gataxian Probe. So they know what decisions I'm making, and I'm about to play Polluted Delta, and I'm about to have perfect information. So I play Delta, and I just decide to play Lavamancer and ship for 2. I figure I'm just going to play around whatever they could have. I think that's a little too loose, but it's neither here nor there. And I think it is actually quite reasonable. I think I should have played Fireball this turn. For an extra point of damage off this, unclear. But I think that tension of attacking and seeing what happens and then deciding to play spells is something you really have to be quite cautious about. It's very important to do it, but at the same time I think I was a little bit too cautious this turn. 1 mana is significantly less scary than 3 mana, which is what is about to happen here. So my opponent shifts the turn back, I untap, I look at my top card, it's Lightning Bolt. It's Lightning Bolt, So Delver's going to transform. I draw the lightning bolt. And now again, we're in the same situation, but there's 3 mana up. And my opponent has perfect information about my hand. So, again, there's the Dak Fade and attack line, but if they have a counterspell and they take 3, 4, 5 damage, they go to 11. You know, yeah, if I draw a land, I can play Cough next turn, and that's not an unreasonable plan B. But if they just have a boring regular counterspell, on their turn they kill the Insect Collaboration and leave another counterspell up, I don't think that's necessarily good enough. I didn't really want to expose Dak here, so I just jammed again. So I shipped 4 damage is a 4-turn clock. They've got 2 fetch lands, so with Grim Lavamancer, it's really a 3-turn clock. And I was waiting for them to do something, which they did. They cracked twice. They know I'm playing because of open deck list. They know I'm playing Blood Moons. They go to the basics, and they have Magmatics in Cold, which is a perfectly reasonable card to kill Delver Secrets with. So we'll just wait for the terrible Moto replay engine to make that happen. Okay, so now they're tapped out, and now I've given up some damage. They've only taken 1, but I get to stick Dak Fade, and I get to bin Firebolt. So only really discarding 1 card here. And alright, so the question here became like, what card do I pitch alongside Firebolt? And I think it's Jace's Prodigy, because this is not really a game where Jace is going to do a lot more for you. You don't have a bunch of powerful spells in the bin. Yeah, you've got Lightning Bolt, but Jace is a little, Jace flashing back a Lightning Bolt, I felt was not as good as just Grim Lava Mancering straight away. The other card you could flip is Cough, or even Lightning Bolt, but I feel like Cough, if my opponent taps out, Cough can end the game very quickly, and Lightning Bolt is just a little too efficient. I felt with 5 points of burn damage and a Grim Lavamancer in play, and the Dak Fade Grim Lavamancer synergy, burning my opponent out was actually the most likely route to winning this game. Because I just felt they're going to leave up mana for multiple turns. I'm probably never going to want to cast Cough into it. I'm going to be trying to get incremental value off my burn spells. And I want to play Barbering this turn to start the Lavamancer train. Otherwise, I would consider pitching Barbering and just trying to draw a 4th land at some point. So I pitched Firebolt plus Jace's Prodigy, play the Barbering and ship the turn. So my opponent taps, and their turn is not particularly dramatic. They ponder, they shuffle their ponder, which I interpret as a sign of weakness. They play the tap Demons and ship the turn back. So they've got 6 cards, they've got 2 mana up. Maybe it's a removal spell, maybe it's like a Memory Lapse or a Mana Leak. I think the negate had actual Mana Leak in it. So I assume they had some piece of interaction, but I assume it also wasn't particularly significant interaction. It was probably just some generic counterspell or removal spell. I draw a land. The first thing I do is Dak, and I never want Blood Moon here. They've got 2 basic islands in play. I don't want a card spell that doesn't affect the board and turns off my Barbering. So I bin that, and then I bin Flooded Strand as well. I guess I could have played the Flooded Strand and bin the Mountain to go get another dual land, but I figured with 5 lands in play, my mana's pretty fine. And then I repeat the same thing. I decide I don't want to run Cough into a counterspell. If they have a removal spell, I'm happy to play Cough, pass up on 4 damage, and just have it sitting in play in a fashion where my opponent can't get rid of it. So I just poke him with Swift Spear, but I do decide to bolt my opponent before damage. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Turning Bolt into a deal 4 is a big enough prize. My opponent just lets it all happen. So I actually read the hand as fairly weak here, and I assume they've got a counter spell rather than a removal spell. So there are a bunch of issues here. I've got Grim Lavamancer put you to 2. I've got a Flashback Firebolt. Cough, if they tap out, is going to deal them 4 plus the Grim Lavamancer and the land in hand. So quite a few ways to assemble lethal here, and my opponent just plays basic island and passes the turn back, which I assume means in most circumstances I'm going to win this game. Okay, so I misclicked the play button. I ate something with lava man, split them into 4, and my opponent conceded straight away. There was an interesting decision about whether or not like how barbering is going to work next turn, because I had 3 cards in my graveyard. Barbering needs 7 to be activated. Jack will get you to 5, and then there's this question of if you cough and get it countered, and they kill your Swift Spear, you can then Barbering plus Lava Mancer, etc. So I was thinking a little bit about that, but it ended up being completely academic. Anyway, I think the game was the most interesting of the 3. I think the situation where you're facing down 2 or 3 open mana is a fine line to walk. I usually err a little bit on the side of being overly cautious, and I think that I possibly could have jammed the Deck Fade a turn earlier, but I think generally putting your opponent to the test, and as you saw there, they felt like they had to kill Delver of Secrets because they didn't want to take 3 damage. And yeah, if they hadn't killed the Delver, it's not that unreasonable for me just to pass the turn. Just say, cool, I've still got 4 damage in play. I'm not going to do anything, you go back first. Sinkholding an instant though is particularly gross at breaking that parity. Anyway, on to game 2. I'll talk a little bit about sideboarding at the end, but in this matchup, Blood Moon comes out, Magoose of the Moon comes out, Price of Progress comes out, especially with open deck lists, you're never catching them with those cards. And I bring in, the blast effects, the more efficient spells that hopefully will let me protect my things. So, my opponent's playing first. This 7 card hand is perfectly reasonable. It's got turn 1 Jason's Prodigy into turn 2 annoying threat depending on how the game plays out. My opponent mulligans, and I'm quite happy with that because I've got a pseudo mulligan in my hand with Chrome Box. Alright, so game starts, they ship the turn. I draw Deck Fade. So there's a question here about what I imprint under Chrome Box, and I'm inclined to think it's Deck Fade just because it then taps for, you can get a Volcanic Island with this, and you can have 2 blue sources for Narset if it comes up. Because Jace is going to be actively looking to discard any other lands you draw. I don't think Deck Fade is actually at its best against my opponent's deck, so I don't think I'm that upset about binning it. The other card in this hand that I would consider binning is Jason's Prodigy, but that obviously doesn't make sense because then I have nothing to cast. So goodbye Jack. I make Jason's Prodigy. It doesn't get spell snared or lightning bolted or otherwise sent to the graveyard, and we're off to see what happens. So my opponent, very obviously, is just going to ship the turn back. They don't have anything going on. Again, they're presumably sitting on a counter spell. And now I have this interesting decision. I drew a Robber of the Rich, which is actually quite a good threat. It's going to eat cards off the top of my opponent's deck and act as a source of card advantage. It's got haste, so they have to have instant speed removal if they don't want to take damage. And I can protect it with Elemental Blast if they have a Lightning Bolt or some other burn spell that costs more than 1 mana that they plan to kill it with. It's not clear to me what the correct line is, so I decided to loot first and get some more information. I drew a mountain, which didn't really help, I just binned it, and then I played a mountain. With the benefit of hindsight, I think it might be good to pass the turn, go for Hull Breacher in their end step, have them counter it, and then stick Legion Warboss. I think that's probably a line that wins more overall, but I decided to jam over the Rich. And my opponent had Ether Gust, which I was not, I saw it in their sideboard, and I was not really thinking it out in this situation. I chose to put it on the bottom of my library. I don't think I want to draw this card again next turn. Next turn, I'm definitely playing one of these 2 cards. So Robber's not doing anything for me. I'd much rather take a shot at a much more impactful card. Robber the Rich, on turn 2, great. On turn 4, not quite as great. My opponent might be low on cards. It might not be doing its Robin Hood impression. So not much happens here. I get the turn passed back to me. I draw a Mental Misstep, and this I'm pretty happy about. The red and blue Elemental Blast my opponent has are their best weapons against me, and this covers them nicely. Here I'm taking a little bit on Warboss plus Hull Breacher. I actually, you see me tap for Legion Warboss, change my mind, cover it by activating J-String's Prodigy, as if I was just wanting more information first, but I just decided to follow the same plan I mentioned before, of Hull Breacher in their end step. If he gets countered, creates a window for the War Boss. This is a pretty good 4 card, so I think a lot of the time I'm actually discarding the card I draw off J-String's Prodigy to its own effect. And certainly I'm not keeping a land here over a good spell, as much as I'd like to be able to hold up Blue Blast when I cast a Hull Breacher against a removal spell of some sort. Anyway, I ship, and my opponent has a counterspell, but unfortunately for them it's the Modal Archmage's Charm. They try to draw 2 cards, which obviously is particularly inefficient when Hull Breacher is in play. So I get to make some treasures, which synergizes really well with having Blue Elemental Blast. So now I'm covered against a removal spell on the Hull Breacher. And my opponent just plays Langor. And I read this hand at this point as very weak. They've got 3 cards in hand. They cycled Archmage's Charm, so they obviously felt like they wanted to draw to something. I didn't have a lot going on, so it was not inconceivable to just hold the Charm up. And I read this as they've got some other counterspell, but not a lot. They might have a cantrip that's turned off by Hull Breacher. They definitely don't have a removal spell. They'll be trying to kill the Hull Breacher now. Because these treasures obviously are never getting tapped regularly for mana. Anyway, I draw Eidolon. So the question here is, what do you play? I think War Boss is the clear best card to play. You could think about playing Eidolon and trying to put some pressure on your opponent in terms of restricting their options, but I don't think that Axis is really necessary. This already cuts off a lot of their cheap spells that cantrip, and they're at 20 life. It is turn 4, you're starting to enter they might do something more powerful than you can handle territory. So I do have War Boss. My opponent has, a little quickly, my opponent had Hydroblast and I mental misstepped. So I was feeling pretty happy with this. I was fairly confident there was a counterspell hiding out, and to catch Blast with misstep is always a good use of it. Then the War Boss resolve, and this I think is the pivotal moment where I make a significant mistake. So I go to combat, and the token attacks, and I tank for a little bit, and I don't attack with Hull Breacher. And the thinking here was they have a Snapcaster Mage that could quite reasonably leverage to trade with Hull Breacher, and I felt that this card being in play was probably cutting off quite a significant number of their outs, and I wanted to take a turn to not expose it to Snapcaster Mage. The reality is, sadly, which I didn't work out quickly enough, is that with Hydroblast in the graveyard and Legion War Boss on the stack, if they had Snapcaster Mage, they would have snapped back the Hydroblast to counter the War Boss, and then, had Snapcaster to stop this from attacking and hopes to draw out of it. I got way too cautious here. I think it's fine to think about this. It's actually a good thing to think about this, to make sure the Hull Breacher doesn't get tagged by Snapcaster Mage acting as ambush sniper. But I was far too cautious here because there's overwhelming evidence from the game state that they simply don't have it. Their last 2 cards in hand are probably just a draw spell and some other generic card. So I should have attacked. I missed out on 3 damage, and I guess we'll just keep watching the game, and we'll do some math later to see if that matters. They take 1 for the token. I choose not to play Eidolon because I want to let Blue Elemental Blast up. I'm mindful of the anger of the gods they have in their sideboard, and I don't really want to get blown out by it. And my opponent plays Misty Rainforest, shifts to turn back. I activate J-String's Prodigy, which they attempt to electrolyze. I actually thought for quite a while before Blue Elemental blasting this, because flipping Jace here is a bit whatever. There's no efficient burn spell in the bin to recast to try and force through a huge amount of damage next turn. Electrolyze is not going to draw them a card. It's going to make a treasure. But then I thought, Electrolyze targeting Jace when there is a Hull Breacher in play that is a more disruptive card, they must have a reason for wanting this card in particular dead. So I decided to trade in Blue Blast. They've only got 1 card left, so Blue Blast is, and Blue Blast rather than Red Blast is not the best blast against them. You know, they've got fewer relevant red spells than blue spells a lot of the time. So I save it. It's going to transform. I draw a good Lavamancer, which I discard. I think Lavamancer might have been a little better than Ironborn in hindsight, but I think the ability is to cut off cheap answers to things or force cheap answers to also cost life was what seduced me at the time. I think in retrospect, with a 3 activations at least in the graveyard, I'd much rather have just kept the Lavamancer. So this turn I draw Island, which is obviously not particularly good. And despite Snap Custom Age still being a card my opponent could possibly play, I fortunately don't make the same mistake again, and I just serve with everything. So, Warboss Mentors. I think post-combat a little bit about playing Idol on the Great Rebel. I actually think I tapped mana for it if I remember correctly, and then decided not to. Oh, yeah, sure. Uptick Jace on nothing first. Yeah, so I go to cast Eidolon and decide that my protection against a sweep is now gone. I don't want to lose to one getting top decks. I don't think they're sandbagging it. And they obviously aren't going to cast cheap cantrips anyway, so I figure, look, maybe I'll just hold it. I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage in play. They've got a fetch land. I just figured that this much damage is probably sufficient pressure. And I'd rather just hold this, in the sort of quote-unquote just-in-case circumstance. And then my opponent draws a card for turn, fetches, and plays a very angry Bascal, which is not the best news for me. But crucially, the thing to recognise here is it really compounds the Hull Breach mistake. I think I was far too cautious. If I'd had other threatening creatures in play, my opponent wasn't at 20 or 19 life at the time, maybe a little more justifiable. But I think it was just a straight up terrible mistake. And here, this Jace is going to shrink the Germ, so they're at effectively 12 life. If they'd attacked with Hull Breacher on the turn before, they'd be at 9 life. When I attack with everything this turn, the Germ token would block this, and they take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage and go to 2. And then if I played Idol on last turn and attacked with that as well, they'd actually just be dead. So you can see those small mistakes of not thinking about what's going to happen have compounded and put me in an awful position. Even this turn, if I had attacked with Hull Breacher, had them at 2 life and played Eidolon, that's only 1 spell, because they can attack with the Germ, gain 2 life, and they've got 1 spell to get out of it, but I've got that covered with a Red Blast some significant percentage of the time. So as it is, this sucks. I have to attack with the Goblin because of the text on Legion Warboss, so the Germ token just gets to eat things, which is pretty frustrating. So I play Eidolon, because why not at this point? And I don't attack with Hull Breacher. It's a little unclear. I have to attack with Warboss. I really want them to eat Warboss. And I think that probably means I should have attacked with Hull Breacher as well. So you can see these small errors that are not really thinking about what's going on and just compounding in an unfortunate way. So that would be at 4 life at attack with Hull Breach, and I think them trading for Hull Breach is not the end of the world. So they'd be at 5 life if they hit the Hull Breach. And I don't think losing Hull Breach here is really the end of the world. They had 1 card in hand. If it was some sort of cantrip, whatever. The board state here is beyond 1 cantrip making a difference. I've got to find a way to kill this thing. Sadly, there are not a lot of ways in my deck to kill a Bascal. And I figure I'm very likely on the trade a creature and a spell for it to time walk them and try and force through enough damage to kill them plan. So again, they have a magnetic sinkhole, which is frustrating because it doesn't tag them for either one and it just straight up kills Jace. So that's particularly frustrating. They're getting 4 life a turn, so they're at 13 life effectively when they attack. And they've got Chain Lightning, and they've got 2 red up. So this is a situation where I think I'm very close to just not winning this game at this point. I think a little bit, they're at 13 life. I can serve with everything. They eat the Hull Breacher. They take 5, 7 damage. If I Chain Lightning them, they take 10 damage, but they're not dead, and then they'll attack me, and they'll get to block next turn, so they've gained the 8 life back. It's just not particularly good. It's rapidly spiraling out of control, and I effectively know I'm going to lose this game. Straight away. I effectively know I'm going to lose this game in a few turns' time, regardless. Of note, if I do chain lightning them, they can't throw it back to kill something because I can then fork it again and throw it back at their face. If this was a red source, I could have done this second and third time, but they can only copy it once. Chain lightning is a wild magic card. So I serve with these things. I probably should just serve with everything. Again, I think Hull Breacher being alive is rapidly diminishing in value. So 10, so taking an extra 5 damage puts them at 5. I could have chain lightning them to 2. Then they could have attacked me, gone to 6, and blocked back up to 10. So it's effectively, the next turn is really all that matters. I took the line of deciding to chain lightning this, force them to pick it back up, force them to replay it. And then if I draw one of my powerful burn spells, like Fire Blast, etc., I could force through lethal. So I save 4 life gain to my opponent by doing that. Obviously they pick it up. They play a land, they play their Battle Skull, which is entirely predictable. And my draw step does not win me the game, because it's basic mountain. I don't attack, there's not a lot of profit in attacking. They're attacking me, I'm going to have to start chumping next turn because I've got Idol in play, so going to less and less life becomes more and more problematic. And I draw another blank, and this game just peters out over quite a few turns. I'm actually just going to cut the replay here. But the key is that I made a mistake on the combat mouth, and it snowballed very, very unfortunately. And then the final game, game 3, I'm on the play. I made a couple of small sideboarding changes. I was a bit worried about Battle Skull, so I decided I did have to go a little faster. This is an interesting 7. So there's Scalding Tarn here, which casts Grim Lava, which is not a particularly threatening 1-drop against my opponent's deck. And I have 2 islands, so I can't cast Idol on the Great Revel on turn 2. And Narset can be cast, but I don't I don't need both islands to cast it. I've got an island here. And Ravel Mask is great, but on turn 3 it might just not do enough damage if it's not backed up by 1 and 2 drops. I actually was strongly considering keeping that hand. I was really on the fence about it. But fortunately, a 6 is exceptional. It's an decision about which card to put back from this 7-card hand. I decided on Barbering. Jason's Prodigy is definitely a card that benefits from having cheap instant sorceries to recast. So you've got a Lightning Bolt, which makes it a lot better. If you put Barbering back, Jason's Prodigy will find you your 3rd land. And I think the key aspect of Barbering over another land is that Fire Blast needs 2 mountains in play. And I think a really significant part of maximizing this deck is even when you don't have it in your hand, so having it here and staring at it and reading that sack 2 mountains, it's a clear reminder. But prioritize getting 2 mountains into play if you want to play this deck. Because a lot of your games are won by ripping Fire Blast and going, cool, this is Bolt plus Fire Blast is 7 damage for 1 mana. It's resilient to Daze and Spell Pierce and all those soft counter magics. Anyway, I kill. Tried to click on the actual keep. Anyway, I keep this, I ship the Barbering, and I'm pretty happy with this hand. I've got Goblin Guide, which is a good 1-drop. My opponent's also Mulligan, so I might undo their Mulligan, but who cares? If it can get in for 4 or 6 damage, I'm more than happy to give them a couple of cards. Yep, so I get Volcanic Island, on Mountain, and I use the fetch land that can't get basic island, because if I draw a mountain next turn, I'm probably going to want to use this to get a basic island. And then my opponent has a mental misstep for my Goblin Guard, and suddenly I'm feeling quite sad. My hand is now burn spells that get my opponent to not even half their life total, and a very slow Jason's Prodigy against the deck that's full of permission and draw spells, etc. But We both mulliganed. They're not getting any free cards off guide. I draw a land, so we'll just see what happens. Now I can get Mountain with the Scalding Tongue, and I just put my Jason to play. There's no spell stand. My opponent ponders on their turn. Sorry, I clicked through the path turn quite quickly. They kept their ponder, and they played basic Mountain, and killed my Jason. So, I was a little upset at this point, so I felt like, oh, if I kept the 7, maybe I could have, navigated their sticks a bit better, because that 7 was, resilient to Flame Slash and Mental Misstep. But then I drew Bone Crush Dry. And then I was like, well, this is a pretty good reward. We're not screwing around with stomping or, anything like that. We're just playing Bone Crusher Giants and saying to our opponents, it's big and ugly, and it's going to deal you a lot of damage very quickly. So, this is actually like the best possible draw to play against Thing in the Ice. Thing in the Ice does not block, whereas it blocks basically everything else in the deck to gain a very large amount of life. This just keeps getting in. And then I do another burn spell. And now I'm actually quite excited, because this is 10 points of burn, which means I have to find 8 damage, and conveniently that's 2 attacks from Bone Crusher Giant. So I actually suddenly think, ooh, my path to victory has become clear, and I just have to cross my fingers and hope. Notably, this deals them 2 damage if they do remove it, so there's quite a significant possibility that I could just get them even if they only get 1 attack, or only if I only get 1 attack in off this. They obviously are never going to block with their Thing in the Ice. They probably wish to kill me with a large horror. So they take 4, I skewer them now. I'm sort of playing around Spell Pierce, so I'm not going to Lightning Bolt my opponent's end step, unless they tap out. And my opponent now doesn't have a land to play, just passes the turn, and I read this as pretty significant weakness. Yeah, they've got 4 cards in hand, but they didn't have any instants to cast for 1 mana, so no cantrips. If they had a counter spell to leave up, it's not going to be countering Lightning Bolt or Fire Blast, like a Spell Pierce type counter spell. If I can just pass it, if I just attack with this, just keep waiting, eventually they're going to have to tap out to find more lands. So when my opponent missed their land drop there, I got exceptionally excited. I serve with Bone Crusher. My opponent takes it, which, again, no magmatic sinkhole business. And then they make, I play a land. And then they make the entirely reasonable play in their end step of cycling Shark Typhoon. Gains them 4 life, draws them a card closer to making their 4th land drop. I presume their hand had, something to do with a counter spell or something like that. That's why they wanted to leave this up and not do it on their turn. But unfortunately, I have the exact 2 cards that kill them. And that's the gross aspect of Fire Blast. Making sure you have 2 mountains instead of 4 is just absolutely essential for this deck. Okay, so just close that and I'll go back to the collection. So this was the deck. The most significant part of sideboarding against that deck is to take out cards that are just really bad. So Blood Moon and Magoose of the Moon, which is here somewhere. These cards obviously aren't doing anything. Price of Progress does a little bit. You saw my opponent had a few cards left stuck in their hand. So a few non-basic lands in play, but usually they can play around Price of Progress very efficiently. So these are the first 3 cards I would cut. Firebolt's also entirely reasonable to cut. This is phenomenal against decks play Elves or Mana Dorks on turn 1 that you can then get burn damage out of later as a mana sink. Otherwise, it's a bit average. Fiery Confluence is an interesting one. I took it out, then realised I'd forgotten my Battle Skull, and then immediately brought it straight back in. Because this deck needs an answer to Battle Skull if you're opponent's playing it, other than Dak Faden. Which, if you may remember, was stuck under a Chrome box in that game, so it wasn't an out. The Royal Silence is also an interesting one. It excels against fair decks, which my opponent was playing, but that's usually because +1 to give more damage, first strike and trample really prevents your opponent from blocking with any meaningful creature. When you've got a 4/2 first strike trampler, their elf doesn't do anything. Even their questing beast gets first strike out of the game. So these are the cards they look at as, not good enough. If you really wanted to cut more cards, you could definitely sort of, fine tune another, like burn spell, like Skewer the Critics, could be on the chopping block, etc. But the cards you want to bring in, so I brought in Misstep, all my blasts, so Hydro Blast, Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast, and I think I tanked for a little bit on what the last card was, or if I wanted to keep Fiery Confluence or the Royal Scions. And I think I cut Fiery Confluence for game 2 and brought in Flusterstorm, and then I reversed that cut for game 3 after I lost quite horrendously to Batterskull. I think Flusterstorm's fairly average against their deck. A lot of the time, it's just another counterspell, and you really only need 1 or 2 counterspells to force through enough damage to win. You're not really fighting on the stack. You're not really putting your opponent in situations where they have to counter your spell or lose. Other than, I guess, like your Wheel of Fortune and Blood Moon combo, which Blood Moon's being taken out. This is really just counter your counterspell. I think I have enough of those cards with the 4 blasts and the Misstep. This is a deck I will be probably running back for rounds 3 and 4. There are a few cuts I want to make. There are cards that are from Strixhaven that didn't really have time to test before this round that I'm much higher on. There's the new True Drop that pings them, which I think could be something worth trying. In general, though, I think I just want to tinker a little bit with the sideboard. I think the metagame for this event has turned out to be quite different to what I was expecting. I put in a very generic sideboard of all blasts and a couple of good generic graveyard hate cards, artifact hate cards, etc. So Flame Slash, for example, Sudden Demise, they're cards that are on the chopping block that I think I put in as they're just generic answers to certain decks, and I don't think they're really necessary based on the metagame I was looking at. If you have any questions, you can feel free to message me on Discord, or if I ever stream my rounds 3 and 4, you can come ask me questions whilst I play. Otherwise, all the best. If you're still playing the league, good luck, and I hope to play against you or see your results soon.